They'll never admit it, but there's something logic can't explain. Why do certain people cross our path as if they were inevitable? Carl Jung called it synchronicity, when the universe seems to speak to us through encounters, signs, and symbols. The ego tries to justify it as coincidence. The persona pretends it's normal, but deep down we feel it was more than chance. It was a message. The controversy is clear. What if the universe really does conspire to bring two people together, not in the romantic, fantasy-like way they portray in movies, but as part of a larger psychic and spiritual process? Perhaps that person who suddenly entered your life isn't there just to bring pleasure or comfort. Maybe they're the mirror you needed for your shadow work, the trigger that opens doors to your unconscious, the archetype you needed to confront in order to grow. And here's the counterintuitive statement. The signs indicating this encounter won't always be gentle. Sometimes it's pain, sometimes it's enchantment, sometimes it's discomfort. But there's always a purpose. True spirituality doesn't just deliver ideal soulmates, but inevitable encounters that accelerate your individuation. And when you learn to recognize these signs, you realize that life is speaking to you all the time. You just have to know how to listen. Sometimes life seems to play tricks on us, putting people in our path we never imagined we'd meet. These are those seemingly casual encounters that change everything. Carl Jung drew attention to this type of occurrence, reminding us that spirituality isn't revealed only in temples or deep meditations, but also in the chance events that reveal meaning. The ego likes to believe it controls everything, but the truth is that certain encounters are charged with something greater. The persona may even try to pretend it's a coincidence, but deep down, the soul knows it isn't. Think of someone you met at an unlikely moment, a conversation on the subway, a stranger who offers you help when you needed it most, or even a reunion with someone who seemed to have disappeared from your life. These episodes carry symbolic weight because they act as keys to the unconscious. They are triggers that activate internal archetypes and make us reflect on who we are, what we seek, and where we are going. And, interestingly, the more we do shadow work, the more sensitive we become to these subtle signals. In practice, these encounters are inevitable because they are part of the individuation process. It's as if the universe is saying, now is the time to look at this part of yourself. Sometimes this part arrives in the form of a transformative friendship, other times through a painful conflict. Whatever the case, the invitation is always the same: to grow. Those who open themselves up to observing these meaningful coincidences realize that life is less random than it seems. It's as if there were an invisible thread weaving together events. And it is precisely here that Jung introduces one of psychology's boldest ideas: synchronicity. The notion that external and internal events align in meaningful ways, even without apparent cause, a secret language between the universe and the psyche. And when we understand this, we realize that these encounters are not just unexpected, they are inevitable because they are part of a larger design. For Carl Jung, synchronicity wasn't just an elegant theory, but a real experience that permeates everyone's lives. He realized that there are moments when external events and internal states align in such a way that it's impossible to simply call them coincidence. It's as if the universe had its own grammar, made not of words, but of signs. The ego, hasty and rational, tries to ignore it. The persona, concerned with appearing logical, disguises it. But spirituality opens its eyes and recognizes there is a secret language that connects us to the whole. In practice, synchronicity can appear in simple yet meaningful ways. You think of someone you haven't seen in years and they text you the same day. You're pondering a difficult decision and suddenly a book falls off the shelf with a quote that answers your question exactly. Or even in the midst of the hustle and bustle of a city, a song plays on the street and gives you the feeling it was made just for you. These events don't prove anything to the ego, but they transform everything for the soul. The beauty of synchronicity is that it reminds us that we are not isolated. We are part of a larger network, a collective unconscious that manifests itself through archetypes and symbols. Jung said that paying attention to these signals is like learning a new language. At first it seems strange, but little by little we notice patterns, repetitions, and understand that life is in dialogue with us. Synchronicity invites us to step out of autopilot mode and see that even the unexpected can have a purpose. And of course, the more we delve into shadow work, the more attentive we become to this language. Because it's not just the world that speaks to us, it's also our shadow manifesting itself through the encounters, signs and mirrors that emerge along the way. And when we realize this, we begin to notice that some people appear precisely to play this role, to be living signs on our journey. There are times when someone crosses our path and suddenly we feel as if we're looking into an invisible mirror. It's not just about immediate likes or dislikes, it's about recognizing in another person aspects of ourselves that the ego tries to hide. Carl Jung stated that we often project our shadow onto others, and that's why certain people evoke such intense emotions in us. The persona smiles, feigning neutrality, but our heart races, and our mind doesn't understand why. This intensity isn't a coincidence, it's a sign. These people function as embodied archetypes. The friend who always tells you the truth to your face may be revealing the part of you that suppresses authenticity. The colleague who arouses envy may reveal talents you've neglected. The partner who provokes insecurity may be reflecting the fragility you avoid seeing. Every human relationship carries an invitation to shadow work. It's uncomfortable, but it's transformative. When we open ourselves to interpreting these presences as signs, discomfort becomes learning. In practice, you can start practicing this in a simple way. Take a sheet of paper and write down 3 people who bother you most today. Then write down what characteristics about them irritate you. Then ask yourself, in what ways does this characteristic also exist in me? This exercise, as challenging as it may seem, can reveal hidden projections and open space for individuation. Discomfort ceases to be just an irritation and becomes a tool for self-knowledge. And of course, not all mirrors are painful. Sometimes we encounter people who awaken the best in us, who remind us of forgotten potential, who reinforce our faith in life. In these cases, too, they are signs, external manifestations of something internal that demands expression. And when we learn to see people this way, the entire world becomes a great symbolic dialogue. And in this dialogue, it's not just relationships that speak, but also the signs and symbols that the unconscious spreads throughout. Carl Jung said that the unconscious doesn't speak with words, but with images and symbols. While the ego seeks logic and linear explanations, the unconscious uses metaphors, repetitions, and signs that infiltrate everyday life. This is why often something seemingly banal, like a butterfly landing on a window, a number that keeps repeating itself, or a phrase that appears in different places, awakens in us a strange sense of meaning. The persona tries to ignore it, classifying it as coincidence. But spirituality invites us to realize the unconscious has found a channel to express itself. These signs are like encrypted messages. A practical example, someone who, in moments of doubt, always comes across images of bridges. This can symbolize the need to cross a phase, to leave one side of life to enter another. Another example, people who repeatedly dream of moving water may be facing the archetype of flowing emotions, indicating that it's time to release repressed feelings. The key is to understand that the unconscious chooses universal symbols, because they speak directly to the soul, escaping the ego's censorship. It's possible to cultivate a more conscious relationship with these signs. Keeping a symbol journal is a powerful practice. Write down recurring numbers, frequently appearing animals, and phrases that recur in daily life. Then, reflect on what these elements evoke emotionally. This exercise is a form of shadow work because it reveals previously hidden psychic contents. More than superstition, it's about learning to decipher the archetypal language that organizes our psyche. And the more attention we pay to these signals, the more we realize they connect to an even deeper universe, that of dreams. Because it is in sleep, when the ego rests and the persona loses its defenses, that the unconscious speaks even more clearly, and often with the same symbolism that already insinuates itself during the day. For Carl Jung, dreams were the main channel through which the unconscious communicated with the conscious. While the ego is busy maintaining order during the day, at night the mind opens the doors to symbols, archetypes and images that escape the persona's control. Interestingly, even when they seem absurd, dreams carry profound meanings, often anticipating situations or revealing hidden desires. Spirituality manifests intensely in this dream space, as if the universe were taking advantage of the silence of sleep to send us messages we don't hear when awake. In practice, learning to observe dreams is like learning a new language. A symbol should never be interpreted in isolation. It needs to be read in the context of the dreamer's life. For one person, dreaming about fire might represent destruction. For another, it might symbolize purification. Jung said it's essential to ask, what does this mean for me now? This type of interpretation brings the person closer to the process of individuation, as it brings shadow work content to light in a creative and often surprising way. A practical way to connect with this channel is to keep a notebook by your bed and write down your dreams as soon as you wake up. Over the weeks, patterns begin to emerge, recurring animals, returning places, recurring emotions. These elements aren't random. They're clues left by the unconscious. There are even books that help with this process, such as Jung's own Man and His Symbols, which offers keys to decoding the symbolic language of dreams. This practice transforms the act of sleeping into a ritual of self-discovery. And curiously, many of these dreams bring a sense of reunion, as if we were seeing someone we already knew, even if we'd never seen them in real life. This dream experience prepares us to understand an equally mysterious and powerful phenomenon, the feeling of soul reunion in the waking world. Few experiences are as powerful as the sensation of looking into someone's eyes and feeling like we've known them from another life. It doesn't matter if it's the first time we've met. There's something familiar, almost disconcerting, as if the soul recognizes before the ego understands. Carl Jung would explain this through the dynamics of archetypes and the collective unconscious. Certain encounters awaken memories that belong not just to us, but to humanity as a whole. The persona may try to rationalize, but spirituality whispers that this reunion carries more than chance. This feeling doesn't necessarily have to be linked to romantic love. It can happen in instant friendships, work partnerships, or even brief encounters with strangers that somehow change our worldview. It's that teacher who leaves a lasting impression, the friend who seems to have been with us forever, or even a person we meet while traveling and never forget. These encounters activate deep symbols, stirring parts of the psyche that had been dormant. In practice, recognizing these reunions is an invitation to shadow work. After all, if someone awakens such familiarity, it's because they're activating within us something that needs to come to consciousness. It could be a forgotten potential, an unresolved pain, or even a purpose that insists on manifesting itself. Asking yourself, what does this connection awaken in me, is a powerful way to transform intense emotion into learning. This is the path to individuation, using each encounter as a mirror of one's own inner process. And that's precisely where the paradox comes in. These reunions don't always come to comfort us. Often they bring to light an uncomfortable purpose, stirring wounds the ego would rather keep hidden. And it's in this discomfort that the next revelation lies. The most intense connections rarely come to make us comfortable. On the contrary, they tend to open wounds, challenge certainties, and disrupt the order the ego strives so hard to maintain. Carl Jung said that what we most need to find is often where we least want to look. Therefore, when someone enters our lives and awakens strong emotions, be they love, anger, jealousy, or enchantment, there is almost always a hidden purpose. The persona may try to maintain a pose, but spirituality shows us that discomfort is an invitation to delve deeper into shadow work. These deep connections act as true triggers for transformation. Imagine, for example, meeting someone who awakens an absurd insecurity. Instead of seeing this person merely as a threat, the invitation is to ask, what part of me is still unsafe and needs healing? Or when someone inspires us in an almost painful way, showing us talents we wish we had. Instead of envying, we can realize, this brilliance reminds me of my own forgotten potential. Our discomfort in these cases is just a disguise for learning. In practice, dealing with these connections requires courage. We must avoid falling into the trap of romanticizing or demonizing these people. They are neither saviors nor villains. They are living mirrors. The exercise is to learn to observe emotions without running away from them. Note triggers, reflect on repetitive patterns, and seek to understand what hides behind the pain. This process can be enhanced by therapeutic practices, reading works like Jung's The Red Book, or even meditation focused on observing thoughts and feelings without judgment. And, inevitably, these deep connections lead us to a central territory of the Jungian journey, the encounter with the shadow and the need to integrate it to advance in the process of individuation. Because, deep down, every person who hurts or inspires us intensely does nothing more than bring us closer to what we need to recognize within ourselves. Jung said that no one achieves wholeness without first traversing their own shadow. This concept, so central to analytical psychology, explains why deep connections shake us so much. They reveal parts of ourselves that the ego rejects and the persona hides. The shadow carries impulses, pains, desires, and weaknesses we don't want to admit. But ironically, it is precisely in this dark region that the energy necessary for individuation lies. Without addressing what we avoid, we never become whole. True spirituality is not made only of light, but of the courage to enter the darkness. These connections, which seem inevitable, act as portals to this deep dive. A relationship that arouses jealousy can reveal unresolved insecurities. A painful conflict can reveal still open childhood wounds. An intense friendship can activate dormant potential. Each person who crosses our path with impact carries with them a key to open some door of the unconscious. The challenge is to recognize that pain is not punishment, but an opportunity for growth. In practice, shadow work offers tools for this journey. Writing letters that will never be sent, meditating on emotional triggers, revisiting memories with a compassionate gaze. All of this helps illuminate what was hidden. And the more the shadow is acknowledged, the less power it has to control us in the shadows. Jung believed that integrating the shadow was a fundamental step in the process of individuation, ceasing to live divided between who we are and who we pretend to be, and finally becoming a whole being. And when we begin this path of integration, we realize something curious. Not all the connections that mark our lives are meant to last forever. Many are temporary, carry a specific purpose, and depart when the learning is accomplished. This is where we enter the delicate subject of the temporality of connections. One of the hardest lessons to accept is that not all life-changing connections are destined to last. Many people appear as temporary teachers. They arrive, shake us, leave deep marks, and then depart. The ego suffers because it wants permanence. It wants to hold on to what gives it meaning. The persona tries to pretend everything is under control, as if it were natural to move on. But Carl Jung would say that this flux is part of the psyche's movement. Intense encounters can be brief because they fulfill precisely the role of awakening what needed to emerge. This temporality doesn't diminish the value of these connections. On the contrary, it gives them even greater weight. It's as if the universe is saying, here's someone to accelerate your individuation process, but don't get attached. The lesson is greater than the relationship. This can happen in an overwhelming love that lasts a few months, in a friendship that blossoms and then dissolves, or even in chance encounters that change our perception forever. Time doesn't define depth, impact does. In practice, learning to accept this temporality is an exercise in mature spirituality. Instead of asking, why did it end? It's more transformative to ask, what did this teach me? Recording lessons learned, recognizing internal changes, and being grateful for the role others played are ways to honor these connections without imprisoning them. It's a way of respecting the dance of life, where each person occupies the stage for exactly the time they need. And when we can see encounters this way, with this symbolic perspective, we stop seeing losses and begin to see cycles. The self shows us that nothing is lost, only transformed. And so we reach the final point of this journey. Understanding that the true answer is not attachment or resistance, but gratitude and purpose in the face of everything that happens to us. Ultimately, Jung reminds us that every encounter, whether unexpected, painful, magical, or brief, is part of a larger architecture, whose purpose is to bring us closer to individuation. When we look back and recognize the people who have passed through our lives, we realize that none arrived by chance. Each one brought a mirror, a symbol, a piece of our shadow, or a spark of light that we needed to integrate. The ego may complain, the persona may feign indifference, but spirituality invites us to respond with something greater: gratitude. Gratitude doesn't mean romanticizing pain or denying the impact of loss. It means understanding that even the most difficult moments carry seeds of transformation. That love that ended, the friendship that fell apart, the mentor who departed, they all left traces that shaped who we are today. By giving thanks, we remove the burden of victimhood and assume the role of conscious learners. This connects us to the self and reminds us that true power lies not in controlling fate, but in giving purpose to everything that happens to us. In practice, this purpose can be cultivated in simple yet profound ways. Writing thank you letters, even if they're never sent, meditating on the lessons each connection brought, or even creating small farewell rituals to honor those who have passed. These actions transform memories into living energy, integrating past and present. Shadow work in this sense isn't just about delving into grief, but also about reframing experiences with compassion. And when we live in this state of gratitude and purpose, life becomes less chaotic and more symbolic. We stop fighting the flow and start walking with it. And then, suddenly, we understand. Every encounter was a gift in disguise. Every person, a teacher. Every separation, a push toward the next step. This is the ultimate wisdom, to live not as one who survives chance, but as one who recognizes at every moment the invisible hand that guides us. So tell me, how many times have you ignored the signs, calling coincidence what deep down stirred your soul? Carl Jung showed us that nothing is by chance. Each person, each encounter, each synchronicity is a summons to your own process of individuation. The ego wants quick explanations. The persona wants to control the narrative. But spirituality reminds us that life isn't written with logic, but with symbols. And if the universe is sending you someone, it's because there's a part of you that can only awaken through this connection. The truth is uncomfortable. The most memorable encounters don't appear to stroke your ego, but to expand your consciousness. Some will hurt you, others will heal you. Many will do both at the same time. But they all have a purpose: to reveal the shadow you haven't yet wanted to face, to activate dormant archetypes, and to bring you closer to your true self. Nothing, absolutely nothing, happens without meaning when you look through the eyes of the self. Now I ask, who were the people who most transformed your life? What did they awaken in you? What wounds? What gifts? What truths? Share in the comments, because perhaps your story is the mirror someone else needs to read today. Don't shy away from this reflection. It is the map of your inner journey. And if this video resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every encounter, every word, and every symbol is an invitation for you to decipher the signs the universe is already sending you. Because in the end, the biggest mistake isn't losing someone, it's losing the message they brought.